welcome to my YouTube channel. And in this video, well, first you can see my very lovely used mat. In this video, I'm gonna be explaining the issues that people can face, or actually we are facing in terms of comic book publishing in Egypt. So it is kind of related to comics, but not like, this is more like an informal video, and because it's an informal video, I need to explain some things here. And to people who are also not Egyptian, I'm gonna try to simplify this as much as possible and kind of explaining the situation and how things are, because really it is really weird. First, let's go to the comic market. So this is alone is a big problem, because basically when we were kids, this is a lovely story. When we were little kids, our parents used to buy us Mickey Mouse comics and Tom and Jerry and all of these fun comics that we all loved so much. So basically what you'll see on the market was all of these fun comics. And well, practically these were the comics that were sold everywhere. Were kids comics everywhere. Kids comics, kids comics, kids comics. So this is how the comic market in Egypt is. So everyone have this idea in which you're making a comic. Oh, you're making something for kids. I'm like, okay. Same goes with Egyptian studio that makes Egyptian animation. Usually they target kids between the age of 6 and 7. So you're making an animation for kids. And I'm, oh, okay, that's great. So first, comics and anime and whatsoever, it is stereotyped as kids stuff. I'm sure you pretty much heard about anime, you're still watching kids cartoons. Well, comics is the same. We don't have the Western comics idea in which there's Superman, Batman, etc, etc, etc. We don't have that. So you're basically trying to create a market in which there is comics for other ages, like there are teens, there are young adults, there are other comics whatsoever and games, and so you're trying to create a market for that. So that brings me to my other point, in which double standards and bad media. So this is probably gonna take a while to explain, so please bear with me. What is double standard in the Egyptian media? Basically, they say something and they do the other thing. For example, they say a girl is an independent creature. Okay? A girl is supposed to be independent and she has to choose whatever she wants in her life. Job, education, marriage, what she wants to do, where she wants to travel, etc. That's what it said. But that is completely not true. Everything usually happens while it's being forced on the girl. I'm not saying anything bad about men, but this is just an example. It's actually same goes for a lot of guys, where sometimes they are forced to do a lot of things they don't want to because of their families. But still, we are in a male oriented society. So imagine everything you're trying to do with a male oriented society. So that is not nice. Basically, everything goes in favor of men in general, over than female. Mostly of the time, okay? I'm not gonna say everything. So that is just one example in general of double standards. Double standard in general apply almost to everything. People who tend to say we're fighting sexual harassment, yet they do it themselves. people who tend to say, I have the right to have a girlfriend, but at the same time, if his sister gets a boyfriend, you're not supposed to get a boyfriend because I said so. You're not supposed to hug and kiss, but then in the media, it's okay to see people and couples in movies hugging and kissing. Ugh. There's just all kinds of double standards that apply in our country, and there are things such as also forced education, forced marriage, forced everything. So education is probably gonna be the next point before I move on to bad media. Education. So how is our education level, folks? Well, this is what we got. This is our rating. 142 out of 133. Basically, we are the second worst country in terms of education. I'm not gonna say anything more than that everything in our education is misunderstood. We don't actually have an idea what we're studying, and we're just supposed to memorize it. So imagine the creative classes we have. We practically don't have any creative activities whatsoever. So people don't draw, they don't write, they don't have anything creative in general to try while they are in their school age, which is supposed to be the most important part in any human being life, to develop their own skills and personalities and talents. So this is really, I guess, a summary of how bad education is. Want to know some of the interesting examples that these kids have in high school? Well, that's high school, right? They're supposed to be old to understand things such as artificial children. I'm not gonna even write it, but what is artificial children? What is supposed artificial children means? Well, let's see. Another thing is, I did not make traps for the birds of the gods. What is that even supposed to mean? I did not make traps for the birds of the gods. This is our education system. Well, if you can't understand it, how are you supposed to get your creative side working? This is so really fun, right? Okay, let's go to something even more fun to just end up with this double standard thing. Age racism. Even I don't know if it's written right or wrong, but yes, bear with me. I'm sorry if the spelling is really wrong here because I'm just in a rush. So many things are going into my head for this video. So what is age racism? This is not religion, this is not skin, this is not anything in your head. It's age racism. So being in a double standard society means that your parents keep telling you that they always know the best for you. Thus, they pick your college, what job you're supposed to be in, your extra courses after college, because just so you know, college over here isn't an option. You have to go to college. It can be governmental schools, which is usually don't pay money, but it's determined by how much percentage you score in high school. And to go to a decent school, you have to get the 99.9%, and I mean it. Usually because we are so double standard and people like a lot of appearance, people have this idea that being a doctor or an engineer or whatsoever, or all of these fancy jobs is, the way to go. So, or the right jobs, I don't know, the right fashion of job. So basically, most people would put on all this pressure so kids can bring up these crazy scores. Yes, same unexplained system that people just memorize and do nothing else but memorize and then go put it on paper to bring these high scores. So kids are pressured, and because their parents are pressuring them to go to some of these fancy colleges trend. If you go to a fine art college, which is usually very prestigious outside of Egypt, oh God, no! Why did you go to fine art? That is because it takes 85%, maybe 85%. So the less in the number the college take, the weirder, or the, like, I don't know how should I say this, the non-prestigious job or prestigious college you're going to go in. It doesn't make any sense, right? I wanted to go to Japanese, but it wasn't prestigious enough apparently, so I actually went to something called mass comm, and I have a horrible time in finding a job because it's a job that needs connections. And I absolutely hate everything related to the media and the work in the media or anything related to it, except maybe for making my own short movies or comics. Before going on to the media, which I'm gonna go right now into, basically what age racism is basically your parents deciding everything in your life because they are always right. You know the example that women are always right? In this case, your parents are always right for whatsoever reason. I don't know how it works, but it's just the right thing. And there's just usually a lot of pressure that is put in terms of financial pressure, everything, because we are really living in a bad economical state at the moment in which $1 equal 10 Egyptian pounds. So that is really a lot of money, and our lifestyle is really expensive with all of the taxes that we actually have to pay, which can make up the product itself rise, I don't know, maybe sometimes 50% more than its price to 100% at some cases. And I'm talking about food and water and electricity. So basically, kids have to actually, or anyone who's getting married, rely on the help of their parents to get married, somewhat. So in the end, their parents pick who is financially more stable, because the parents some of them doesn't wanna pay all of the money to get their kids married, because for here, you have to actually have the fancy furniture, the apartment, the fancy car, the fancy everything. So yeah, sell the girl or to the one with the most money. Let the boy build up his own little empire, and once he gets 35, 40 years old, maybe he can think about getting married once he has saved up enough. Weird logic. So yes, so for here, art, which is the point I want to actually bring, is a no good job. You don't make money out of art, you don't make anything out of art. Art is a big no-no, so that's why people or parents just push away by force all of their kids away from anything artistic, even though it could have like a lot of future. But nope, there's actually very creative people, not just in drawing, but in things that are scientific or they invented stuff or whatsoever. But people just don't know about them, except maybe someone shared a single post on Facebook that people just share or so because of this freaking logic. I'm not gonna say that our doctors are great. Our doctors are really bad, and our medical state is also really bad, and doctors just go because there's just so many people who are scoring all of these high amounts and going to medical school based on this percentage without actually understanding what is medicine supposed to be. So they're actually all well, I don't trust our Egyptian doctors. Let's just say I don't trust anyone who is younger than 40 years old who is a doctor in Egypt. Okay, let's go from age racism into, well, there was the bad media, right? I told you I hate the media so much. Now, since we've talked enough about double standards, what about the media? Well, aside that every place, every country in the world have all kinds of bad medias, I'm gonna talk specifically on movies, series, and all of these fun stuff, okay? So, since we're a very double standard society, we are okay with medias to have kisses and hugs and all kinds of, well, you know, that people who are hearing these videos are okay with. I mean, there's nothing wrong with a kiss or a hug in a relationship, right? Sure, okay. So, just so you know, we're a conservative society, so some people would say, no, no kiss, no hug, very, very bad, or something of that. They would rather get their kids or their girls married without even seeing how their husband looks like in some cases. So yeah. So what does our media have presented us with kind of movies? Let's see. Violent. Okay, never mind. I'm not gonna type it. We have violent movies, adultery movies, a very weird kind. Okay, I'm gonna explain about this in a second. And if you have comedies, usually the cheap ass comedy that doesn't really make any freaking sense. So what about that adultery movie that I mentioned? Well, okay, there was a woman. That was just an example of one movie. A woman who her husband have traveled to work in another country, so she falls in love with someone else. And he starts to threaten anyone else who tries to come close to her because for some whatever reason there are so many men after her. Like a lot, so he starts to threaten them with knives and all kinds of weapons and so. Yes, that was a movie, and I think most of the Egyptian people, I don't want to mention any names, know what movie I'm talking about, and it somehow got into the cinemas. It was after like maybe a month of being in cinemas. This is not even 18 plus. This is something beyond the 18 plus. This is... It's pedophiling! How are you supposed to put a 14-year-old kid in a relationship with a 40-year-old female who's married? That doesn't make any freaking sense. This is just how cheap our movies have been. And this is the way that they're trying to get people's attention with. They are using sexual images or sexual effects on the brain, and this is the movies that work. You can add with that violence, and wow, that is epic. And I don't mean it in a good way. All of these movies are really bad, and they're not anything that helps you to educate you. So this is basically whenever you do anything that has any creative element, it's supposed to have some sort of any of these unnecessary elements, I guess. So why do I mention the bad media? Well, just to be honest, some of the TV series we have are decent, like a series called The Devil Game. I'm not gonna stress how wonderful this series is. It was done brilliantly, and somehow it was able to work with our very double standard society somehow very well. This is like one of the series that is somehow giving me hope that maybe the TV series can actually have a lot better to present in the future than our horrible cinema. We still have a lot of really shitty series on TV. I'm not gonna even gonna go there. You just have an idea about it in general. So why do I just mention this? Here is the reason why everything now is gonna fall into its place. When you have bad education that have no creative education in it, plus double standard society, okay, double, and then you have bad media, and you have no comic market on top of that, and then you try to make something. What do? You're supposed to make something that is non-Egyptian oriented, right? Well, okay, and done a fantasy story with Western names. When you take it to the publisher, they say, why is it not Egyptian? How am I supposed to make a comic that is Egyptian? Is everything related to the Egyptian culture is just messed up? Okay, so this is probably the main issue right here when you take your comic to the publishers. which happens to be that there are book publishers, not comic book publishers because we don't have one, except maybe for one. But mostly, when you take it to the book publishers, they're just gonna say, why is it not Egyptian? And not just for comics, anything. You sing a song, let's say you hate the horrible Egyptian music because it has a horrible sound. I'm not gonna go even there. I really don't listen to anything Egyptian or see anything Egyptian unless it's one of the 50s or 60s or anything that's before the 90s and 80s, maybe the 80s. I see things before the 80s. I listen to music before the 80s as well. Maybe a bit of 90s, but that's it. I have stopped since maybe 2010 watching anything or listening to anything Egyptian. If you go, for example, and you sing a song in an audition, they're gonna tell you, don't you have anything Egyptian to sing? And what is I'm supposed to think if everything is kind of monotoned and really hard to understand? It's same here. There's just so many wrong things. I hope that it can change, but everything just goes into the opposite direction of what you want. So when you go to a book publisher, of course you have all of the fun stuff of copyrights in which they're going to buy the copyrights of your work, and you can't have anything. This isn't even spelled right, whatever. Well, you have the copyrights part. Everyone or the book publishers are going to buy the copyrights of your work, and then they are going to do with it whatever they want. So yeah, that's not nice, right? Especially if you are in a country that doesn't have any market in the first place. They're just gonna write it or buy it, and then they're just gonna not do anything with it. And they only going to actually meet you if you have something as the level of Marvel in DC. And remember the education part I just mentioned? Education is so bad, it doesn't give you anything creative to do when you're a child. So technically, if you are interested in drawing, you're gonna learn it on an older age, which it happened in a lot of my generation. It's usually 16, 17, 18 and up. This is when actually people here learn how to draw, the basics of drawing. It's because around that age, when they start to sort of form a mentality on what they want to do with their lives. But up until some people actually, up until this age, some people till now, they don't know what they want to do with their life. So they just go and say, whatever I'm gonna score in high school, I'm gonna go to whatever college being picked for me, or something that my parents picked for me. And this is actually what almost 85% of Egyptian kids are like that. It's really a sad thing. Anyways, we are going to go to this was when the age where kids start to learn drawing, and they usually pick on things like YouTube, or they torrent stuff because, as I mentioned, the economic state is really bad. So I guess torrent in our case is very legit. Even if you tell me fine art here, I can give you better lessons than what they give in fine art. With my current level, which is intermediate, system in fine art is really old. It uses very old method. It does not really accept anything related to newer methods such as digital art. Unless you go to the digital art part or department in fine art. Still, you're not gonna get the right education that you deserve, and you're still gonna end up with extra courses after college, which is what happened to me and what usually happened to a lot of people. Yes, I was in mass comm, in which I took the lessons to how to shoot videos, how to graphic design, how to do all of this stuff, but nope, I still took courses in it, and I paid a lot more money after I finished my college. And just so you know, my college is a private system, because if you get the 98%, you're not gonna go to the college you want. So the alternative to go to a private college in which you're gonna pay a lot of money, lots and lots of money. I was lucky enough that I graduated a couple of years ago, because right now my college is probably 3 times more expensive than what I used to pay back in the past. I don't know. I have not gone there for a couple of years, so I don't know. After I finished, I still had to take courses and pay more money. It's a never-ending cycle, and that is why, my friends, I teach myself how to draw, because I don't have the money to afford an online course that could be up more like a $500. Maybe I can do that, but it's gonna take a long time to save that amount, which is gonna be a 5K. That's a lot of money, to be honest. Okay, so finally, if people are going to mention cons, I'm just gonna talk quickly about conventions. Because yes, we have some of them, but we have a very lack amount of materials to make cosplay. Here we have art supplies, but they are expensive. But in terms of cosplay, we lack the materials to make stuff. So still, somehow people manage to do very creative cosplays, but it is started in 2013, as in like an official event with a cosplay in it. So because it's still very, very new, you want something that to get to your event, because it's volunteer based. It doesn't have like an organization behind it like Comic-Con or anything of these organizations that organize the event and bring sponsors, etc, etc, etc. So when you are volunteer based, you're supposed to recruit your sponsors and PR the event and do all of this, but you're only 3 years in the market. You have not have all these kind of events yet. So because we're in 2016, unless you're watching this from the future. So anyways, basically you want to attract people to your events, so you're probably gonna use the weird element, which happens to be cosplay. Well, when you're cosplaying, you're rocking with weapons, with colorful hair that you don't usually wear. You have all of these very odd elements that attract a lot of people. So what about artists? We don't care about artists. They are not weird enough to attract people. True, we're not really that weird in terms of our appearance, but still, well, yeah. Well, that's just briefly in terms of cons. In general, the PowerPoint have been cosplay, and it will stay cosplay. And all of the mini events, in order, if you want to make a small event or big event or anything, you're gonna include cosplay in it. If you are living in Egypt and you want to make an anime related event, or maybe if it's not cosplay, you're gonna still include it somehow by saying we are going to do a workshop about how you can make your cosplay, or where you can find the elements or the things you can buy or materials in order to make one. By default, because people in general, they don't draw since they were kids. There is not a lot of us. Usually we're self-taught. We stay a long time until we understand how this works or whatsoever. So we are few. We're not known. I don't know how to say this, but you have to create your identity in a place that does not have the place for the art. So you have to create an identity outside of that field in order to introduce that you draw art. So you have to actually blend in with cosplayers, which probably gonna be your biggest audience at the moment who are going to read your work. But of course, you're not gonna market it in a normal way. You're going to have to go in rounds and rounds and rounds and rounds to market your work. So how are you gonna do that? I actually have very good news for you. There is ways to actually publish your work, maybe not make a lot of money at the moment, but you probably are gonna make a good name for yourself. But let's keep that to another video, which is going to be part 2 on how you can get published. And it's going to actually not just focus on publishing in Egypt, but also focusing in other places and other platforms that you can monetize your work. If you're like me and you're stuck with the option of not finding any job and you have to focus your work on something to make some extra cash, I guess. So in case you're wondering, for me at the moment I'm studying Japanese and hoping that I'll be able to do something with my Japanese language, maybe find a work or something. It's really a very creative language and I enjoy it a lot despite of having a lot of weird kanjis. This is fish, I think. Sakana? I think this is sakana. I know how to read them, but I really have a hard time memorizing kanjis when you're writing them. Okay, I'm just gonna stop before I actually kill any more kanjis. If you're stuck to the end of the video, then you are very awesome. This is basically the most summarized way I can explain how, or the kind of problems that we face in Egypt in terms of comic book publishing. It's really hard over here and very just weird. It's really hard really to live at the moment, especially with the economic state and finding a job and all of that. So yeah, I am going to end up my video here with my horrible kanji, and yep, I will see you in another video, so stay tuned. Bye bye.